Привет, друзья! Welcome back to Be Fluent in Russian show. We are today out in nature, as you can see. I thought about why not bring you guys somewhere in the Russian nature, Russian forest. You hear the birds, a bit of a spirit of nature, a bit of a spirit of calm and peace. And here we are. And hope you enjoy this scenery. I'm enjoying the birds, I'm enjoying the sun, and I hope this energy can be felt through the screen. And you hear the cuckoo. Do you guys have the same thing? We asked the cuckoo how many years do I have left? And the amount of times that it cuckoos, that's the years that you have left. We have this kind of a phrase or superstition. So here we have it. So Be Fluent in Russian show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the first episode. The second episode, same thing. I'm asking you for the same thing. If you have any feedback, any thoughts, please put it in the comments. I would love to read your thoughts because it's a new format for me, a new format for you as our viewers. So let's correct course whenever it's needed. And also put your questions in the comments because I'll answer some questions that you have. For example, right here on the screen. One of my big questions in the past verbal form of the verb to go, shola, sometimes I see it written as ushola. I think it maybe precedes a word ended in a vowel, especially e, but I don't really know. What you are looking at here, Artemio, is a prefix. In Russian, all verbs have prefixes that add their own shade of a meaning. Ushola means she went away. Shola would simply mean she was going, but ushola means she left, she has gone away, she is gone. Okay, ushola. Another prefix, vashola, would be she entered. So you have these different prefixes that kind of shape the meaning slightly, and u is one of those prefixes. So it's not the same verb. It doesn't matter what word was before it. It's just simple prefix change from word to word. So that's the comment that we're going to look at today. And if you have your questions, please put them in the comments as well. I'll be more than happy to check them out. Today, let's talk about culture again. In the previous episode, we said that culture and language go hand in hand. Well, today's case is special in that regard. Today's person that we're going to talk about, it would be no language without this person. The language would be completely different today. And what you're learning right now, the Russian language that you're learning right now, would be extremely, extremely different. Today's person is Alexander Pushkin. Is a poet of 19th century, and his influence on the language is remarkable. I think he is the person that we look at as the Russian poet. He probably has the title of the Russian poet, the Russian writer, the one who had the most influence on the language. Let me explain why. His influence on the Russian culture is immense, but we're going to focus it only on the linguistic part of it. 18th century, 19th century Russia. In fact, before we go there, I have two questions for you. It's not a quiz, it's just for us to kind of have a bit more of interaction here. Two questions. What language was the language of the elites in Russia in 18th and 19th century? Was it Old Russian? Was it modern, regular Russian? Was it English? Or was it French? Think about this. If you don't know, it's okay. This is just for us to kind of build up this momentum for the story. And the second question, yes or no, was German a big influence in the Russian culture? Yes or no? So you will find the answers as I'm going through this description of Pushkin and his influence. You'll find the answers there. 18th, 19th century Russia. The elites spoke French for the most part. Of course, they spoke Russian too, but the show off of your education, of your intelligence, was the French language. A lot of the royal families or those of a higher status spoke French at home as well. All the literature was in French, most of it. Half of it, maybe a little less, was in German. German was also a big influence in the Russian culture because it was the language of the military. The military also took a very high status. It was the career to have back then. And also a lot of technical things, sciences and things like that were written all in German. And a lot of Russian Rich families also had nannies, governors, teachers who taught kids at home from France, speaking French to them. And so it was the language to learn. And also, in that time, a lot of books were written in Old Russian. To illustrate how difficult it would be to read Old Russian, here's an Old English text. Do you understand this text at all? I don't. Here's the translation to the modern English. It kind of looked similar, right? But you can read it, can see the words, but what they mean, I don't know. And the same thing happened with Old Russian. If you had books written in Old Russian, you couldn't read them. Only the scholars could read them. And so people of middle class and lower class had almost no access to that education. French language was foreign to them. German was foreign. Old Russian was unclear to them because they spoke regular Russian. They spoke spoken Russian. So how can a regular person, your mailman, your regular guy who is not of this higher status, educate themselves? No access to any books. Literature was all foreign. And that's when Pushkin comes in. Pushkin comes in the early 19th century. Looks at this whole picture. He was reading French books himself when he was growing up. French books, French teachers, everything like that. German probably, of course, too. He looks at this whole picture and says, you know what? I think it's time to change this. It's time to do something about it. His influence is immense. We're going to focus on his main piece. He writes Yevgeny Onegin. Yevgeny Onegin is a new genre. It's a novel, but in verse. So you have about 40,000, 50,000 words, and each line rhymes. It was the new format. Nobody ever done that before. He wrote it in plain Russian. Super simple Russian that was spoken, he wrote it in that language. When before it was assumed that the regular Russian was kind of choppy, was not beautiful, was not good, he showed the opposite. In his piece, Yevgeny Onegin, he showed the beauty of the Russian language. This piece is witty, is detailed, it's funny, it's humorous, it's elegant, it's very descriptive but yet simple. And all of that is done not through French, not through German, not through Old Russian, but through regular Russian, modern Russian that was spoken on the street. And this piece, Yevgeny Onegin, becomes an immediate success among the working class, of course. That was the first great piece that they could read and understand. But what's more important is that the elites also read this piece and realize the beauty of the Russian language. That we don't have to resort to the Old Russian, the French language. We can use our Russian language to be just as eloquent, just as beautiful in our expression. And here's when the tide starts to turn. French language takes second priority. German also fades. Old Russian is forgotten about. Now it's the era of the modern Russian. Because everybody thought that you couldn't do that. Everybody was believed that you couldn't be beautiful with the new Russian. But Pushkin, just without a doubt, showed that it's possible. Even now, if I read Yevgeny Onegin now, it reads like it was written 2 months ago. It's so fresh, it's so modern, it's so easy to read, but yet very beautiful. And then the writers after Pushkin, like Gogol, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Lermontov, they look at Yevgeny Onegin and other Pushkin's works. We just only focus on Onegin because that's his main piece. And they have no option but to continue his tradition, to continue writing in this style. And so they also continue this path of the Russian language. And so we end up right now with the Russian that we learn today because of Pushkin, who started this revolution of the Russian language because he saw the beauty of the Russian language, but he didn't see it depicted in any books, and he decided to do it himself. But what's extremely sad about Pushkin is that he only lived for 37 years. He died in a duel at the age of 37. So he did all of that in just 37 years. He has an amount of poems, pieces that I think I can spend my whole lifetime reading and rereading, trying to understand it. But his work didn't die with him. There's Tchaikovsky, who writes the opera Yevgeny Onegin. We have Pushkin's monuments right now. We still read Pushkin with streets named after him. So his influence lives on through us, through this bee is gonna sting me if I. Oh, you see the bee? Come on, move. His name lives on through the language that I speak. And in fact, it lives on through you. Learning Russian language, speaking Russian, you're speaking Pushkin's Russian. And we have this responsibility to continue his work by cherishing the Russian language and learning about it and using it more beautifully. So that's Pushkin. I recommend you guys check out Yevgeny Onegin. Even if you read it in English, start to read it in Russian sometimes, some passages. Maybe the most famous one you start to read in Russian and start to get the energy of the Russian language. So that's Pushkin for you. And now let's move on to vocabulary. For this episode, we have words that kind of are about this literature and writing kind of topic. But before we start, this vocabulary list is brought to you by Be Fluent. If you want to speak Russian to your family and friends and enjoy your time as you're speaking to them and not having any trouble as you speak, then check out Be Fluent with the first link in the description. 7-day free trial. Check it out, see if you like it or not, but I'm sure that you will enjoy it. So the first word is листать. Листать, the stem list is a page, but листать means to flip through the book. Листать книгу, to flip through the book. Вчитываться. Вчитываться, you know the verb читать, to read, but вчитываться is to read something thoroughly, to kind of get in the book, that you are consumed by the book. Вчитываться. Я люблю вчитываться, когда я читаю. I love to read thoroughly when I read. Next, читать вслух. Читать, as you know, is to read. Вслух means out loud. Слух here is listening, but вслух means to the listening, or out loud, of course. Подчеркивать means to underline. Подчеркивать, either to physically underline something in a text, or whenever you speak, you underline something, you highlight something when you're speaking. Next, страница. Something very simple. Страница is a page. Страница. Then we have заметка. Заметка is either a note, заметка, or when you jot something down. Заметка. I don't write in the book myself, but I've read books from my aunt, from my parents, with some writing on the side, and it's always interesting to see what they highlight, what they wrote. So yeah, заметка. Черновик is a rough copy. Черновик is a draft. Черновик. When you just jot something down, it's a draft, it's a rough copy. Черновик. And finally, шпаргалка is one slang word for you for today. Шпаргалка is a note that is supposed to be used when you are cheating on a test. Шпаргалка is your kind of thing that you read if you forget something. And typically it has this negative effect to where you're not supposed to have a шпаргалка on your test or whenever you like take an exam or something like that. But шпаргалка is that. When you're cheating, you have a little bit of a note with clues to the test. Шпаргалка. And now you know those words. We have листать, вчитываться, читать вслух, подчеркивать, and страница, заметка, черновик, шпаргалка. Today, last time we talked about how to be fluent in the language. And it consisted of many things: listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar, all of that. Today, let's take one of those things, and the most important one, the one that you will have to do for the rest of your Russian journey, is vocabulary. Let's talk about vocabulary, how to learn vocabulary. And I'm sure that you sometimes find yourself when you speak to a Russian person or just writing sentences or speaking out loud just to yourself, that you want to say something, but you don't have the vocabulary for that. And so you resort to simple things. You resort to things that you do know and try to make them fit to what you want to say. Let's say you want to be descriptive, and let's say I'm looking at this forest right here, and I can say in Russian, какой великолепный лес. Столько много цветов, палитра цветов. Я чувствую спокойствие. Right? So I'm looking at the forest and you saw the translation. But for you to say that, for you to truly depict your emotion, you have to have the words. And instead you might say, очень красивый лес, very beautiful forest. You simplify your emotion because of the words that you do know now. Of course, it's your natural process. But how do we go away from simplifying words or simplifying our thoughts, but instead to express them fully? What we have to do is we have to realize two things. First, your journey of vocabulary learning is never ending. My English is decent, and I still continue to learn new words through podcasts, through interviews, through text. When I read them, I translate certain words and I see, oh, this is what it means. So my vocabulary is always expanding. In fact, why am I speaking about English in Russian? When I read poetry, when I read just regular writings of Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, they use certain words that I have no idea about. So I look them up and I see what they mean. And so the vocabulary process is never ending. That's number one. Number two is vocabulary is in fact the language itself. You're learning Russian, but you're learning Russian words. Grammar helps you structure them. Pronunciation helps you pronounce them. But the language itself is vocabulary. So vocabulary should take about half the time of your Russian studying. It should take up about half of the time. And you have to dedicate a lot more time than you think that you are doing right now. Let's say if you have an hour a day, 30 minutes should be dedicated to vocabulary. This will be the most kind of efficient time spent on your Russian language. Not the grammar drilling, not speaking yet, not listening yet, but vocabulary. The more words you know, the better you can express yourself. And then the easier it's going to be for you to understand somebody else when they speak Russian to you as well. So number one is it's never ending. Number two, spend a lot of time studying vocabulary. And you might ask, but how? What do I do on a daily basis for me to learn vocabulary? For me to make sure that my vocabulary is not just kind of, it comes and goes, that it doesn't stay with me. How do I make sure that it stays for a long time? We have to have a certain process where we challenge our own vocabulary. We challenge our own memory. What our brain is a wonderful thing, and memory is part of our brain to where you think you know something and your brain tricks you and you confuse familiarity with something with long-term memory of it. So if I tell you a word, let's say дерево, a tree, дерево. If I ask you a question, what is a tree in Russian? Right now, like clockwork, you can say дерево. If I ask you the same thing in a month from now in another video, what are the chances that you will remember it? Probably zero. Because right now you're familiar with that word, with the word дерево, you're familiar with it, but you don't have it in your long-term memory yet. So you have to undergo a certain process for that word to stay in your vocabulary for a long time. What do? You have to challenge your vocabulary. Let's say you have 100 words. Here's my best strategy for language, for vocabulary practicing. You have 100 new words that you have no idea what they mean. First, you learn them. Okay, дерево is a tree, etc. Then you have flashcards to where you have only the translation in English, and then you have to tell the word itself. So you flip through your flashcards or any app that does that for you, and you challenge your memory of that word. The more you challenge the memory and the more you fail at recalling the word, and then you get reminded of what the word was, the more you do that, the better your memory of that word will be. So you have to continue to challenge your memory of that word through flashcards, through different exercises. For example, on Be Fluent, we have where you have a picture matching, picture to translation. The audio is being said, then you have to put the word that was said in that audio. You have to translate, you have to spell the word out. We have many different exercises for you guys, and you have to do the same thing for yourself. You have to continue to challenge that memory of the spelling of it, of the sound of it, of the picture that's associated with it. And the more you do that, the better it's going to be. So the 50% of the time that you spend with vocabulary, spend it in a challenging way. Don't just sit and read through the list of words. Like word number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, just read the list. That will do nothing because you're missing a challenge. You're not challenging your memory of those words. You're just reading them. That's not a challenge. So flashcards do a great deal of challenge. Different exercises that where you have to recall something is a challenge. Just flipping through them is not. So create a system or use an app or a website where that system is already in place to practice it. That's one half of it. Second half is finding the right words to learn. I guess I'm kind of vague with the... I'm thinking back to what I just said about the vocabulary, and it sounds kind of vague, like there's no complete, like step 1, step 2, step 3, but I hope you get the idea that it's not really, there's no step 1, step 2, step 3. Each person will find a different challenge, better or worse, and you kind of have to create your own path to how you build your vocabulary. And the best way to do it, I think, is to test your progress, to see, like, let's say if you read a text, let's see you read the same text at the beginning of the month and then at the end of the month, and then see if you understand more or less of that text. I think that can be a good challenge as well, a good test of your vocabulary too. So I guess there's no complete like step 1, step 2, step 3, because each person's memory is different, and each person's life is different, and their skill sets are different. So just find the path for yourself. But one thing has to be present is that challenge of vocabulary. The second part to vocabulary building is finding the right words. I'm a fan of just simply taking a list of words, like A1 list of words, 800 plus words, you learn that. Then you learn those words, you learn A2, because you progress in the level of frequency. Those A1 level words are the most frequent. They cover more than half of Russian speech, but they're only 800 words. It's not like 8,000 words, right? So you learn A1 first. You learn that, then you move on to A2. You learn that, you move on to B1, then you move on to B2. The only problem with that is that the lists don't account for your life and for your own personal experience and personal preference. If you have a certain job that's, let's say, not like an accountant or a banker, something more niche, when you're talking about your job, you won't have the vocabulary to do that. So you might sometimes have to learn things that interest you in particular, to describe basic things like your hobbies and your job and your, I don't know, country you live in, or things that you do on a daily basis. Whatever you do regularly, like your job, your hobbies, learn the vocabulary for that first. So that if your friend asks you, hey, what do you do every morning? You have no problem telling them that. It's a bit more personal. So finding the right words can also be a challenge, but I think with A1 level, A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 approach, you will cover most of the words that you would need. And sometimes, on rare occasions, look up your own interests and your own hobbies that you do, so it can be more personal and less this kind of more scientific approach to it. But that is it, really. I don't really have a lot more to talk about here, because I think my main purpose of this monologue was just to make sure that you guys know the importance of vocabulary and that you practice vocabulary regularly, and then the path, the approach to it will form itself. You'll make certain mistakes, you'll fix them and move on, and you'll correct course whenever it's needed. And now let's move on to the listening part of our Be Fluent in Russian show, where I will be speaking Russian, and you will have the text on the screen with the video format. If you are listening to this in audio format, you won't have that. Just listen to it. And what's going to happen is this time you will only have the Russian text on the screen, no translations. In this episode, let's focus not on just understanding what I'm saying, but on listening to what I'm saying and trying to understand through listening without translations. When you have two languages, it can confuse your brain. Yes, you're listening to the Russian speech, but you're mostly reading the text to understand what I'm saying. That's like a natural inclination. Today, no English translations, just the Russian text, so you can read as you're listening, with the focus of building your listening skills. I'll be talking about running. and my new hobby of running. Let's get into it. I'll be speaking slowly. Я всю жизнь занимаюсь спортом. Всю жизнь. С 5 лет мы с моим братом играем в теннис. И я играл в хоккей, я играл в футбол, я играл в водное поло, я занимался легкой атлетикой, тяжелой атлетикой. Я постоянно занимался спортом всю свою жизнь до 22 лет. В 22 года я закончил свою карьеру в теннисе. Я играл профессионально по юниорам, я играл за университет в Америке, и после окончания университета я больше не играл в теннис. И перестал также заниматься спортом. У меня началась работа, я начал зарабатывать себе на жизнь, и другие вещи стали более приоритетны для меня. И я забыл про спорт. Я начал быстро набирать вес, я начал плохо питаться, и мое здоровье резко ухудшилось. Скажу так, резко ухудшилось. И потом я осознал то, что это была ошибка. Ошибка, что я перестал заниматься спортом, так как проблемы со здоровьем начались почти сразу. И вот буквально 3 года назад, мне сейчас 28, когда мне исполнилось 25 лет, я осознал, что нужно снова активно заниматься спортом. Я начал ходить в спортзал, я начал заниматься тайским боксом. В общем, активно начал снова заниматься спортом. Но главная проблема для меня и сейчас, и в детстве было кардио. Я не любил бегать, у меня было плохое кардио. Я играл в теннис, но все мои соперники знали, если матч будет идти долго, то я очень быстро устану. И они могут меня выиграть, просто играя долго, и все. И сейчас я понимаю, что это проблема с кардио. Сейчас я уже не играю в теннис. Я уже не буду выигрывать, не буду проигрывать. Сейчас главная проблема для меня – это мое здоровье. Что из-за плохого кардио может быть очень много проблем со здоровьем в будущем. Особенно с сердцем. Особенно со всем, что связано с долголетием. И я для себя понял, что мне нужно начать заниматься кардио. И я начал бегать. Я ненавидел бег. Я и сейчас его не очень люблю. Но в детстве я его ненавидел. Но последние полгода я бегаю активно. Почти каждый день, точно каждую неделю. В зависимости от того, от самочувствия, от того, не знаю, где я и так далее. Вот недавно, например, у меня была операция на зуб, и мне врач сказал, что мне нельзя бегать. И я не бегал 1 неделю. У меня был перерыв. Но у меня есть часы, вот у меня есть часы Garmin, которые мне говорят, сколько мне бегать, как быстро мне бежать и так далее. И я полюбил бег. Я сейчас вижу, насколько легче мне живется. Я стал лучше спать, я стал себя чувствовать лучше, я стал лучше выглядеть, я стал более худым, у меня ушел лишний вес. И бег для меня, почему я понял, почему это самое идеальное для меня. Потому что я могу просто одеться, выйти на улицу и бежать. Мне не нужно ехать на теннисные корты, мне не нужно платить деньги за это. Я могу просто выйти на улицу и бегать. Это самое простое, но очень эффективное упражнение. Я также в скором времени пойду в тренажерный зал. буду заниматься с весом, не только бегать, потому что это тоже очень полезно. Ну вот. Надеюсь, что я продолжу бегать долгое время, потому что я вижу прямые плюсы от этого. That is all. Hope it was easy for you guys to listen to this and you enjoyed yourself as you were listening. I take it that no one understood it to 100%, but maybe 30%, 20%, hopefully there. And that is all. Like I said, give me your feedback with the comments in the comments below. I'm reading it all and seeing what you guys are saying. And check out Be Fluent with this button right here to learn more with us and more in a structured way, or keep on learning with our YouTube videos with this next video. It's up to you.